I think I should just start this off by saying, why do bad movies have the coolest fucking posters? Hello, and welcome back to another movie review. As always, I am Kelly, and I just got out of Terminator Dark Fate. And by that opener, you probably think I hate this movie. Yes and no. I wouldn't call this a bad movie, but it is not a good film. By that I mean there are a lot of positives that I can spin about this movie, and there's a lot of things that I can say they did very, very well. Unfortunately, there was also a lot of very big elephants in the room that we have to talk about. And, non-spoilers, let's just say this. This movie opens with one of the biggest fuck you to long-term Terminator fans I've ever seen. I mean, this is the biggest fuck you I think any movie has opened with. And it's immediate. It's the first 5 minutes of this film. It is literally the first thing you see in this film, and is pretty much the motivation of both Arnie and Sarah Connor throughout this entire thing. So, wow. Just wow. And if you cannot get past that 5 minutes, you will hate this movie. So just don't go. Just skip it entirely. Just right out the gate, don't. Now, if you can get past that first opening 5 minutes of this film, there is a good chance that you could actually enjoy this film. And that's pretty much what's divided a lot of people, because there are positives about this. And if you get down to a technical level, this is the best of the Terminator sequels. Just period on that point. Though I personally would probably only put it 4 on the list of 6, because that's basically what you gotta do. So non-spoilers, there is good in this film, and maybe that is worth checking out at some point, but that first 5 minutes, just wow. I can't wait to talk about that. It's gonna be the first thing we talk about in the bad section. But let's actually start off with those good things first. And continuing what I said earlier, the first good thing I can say about this movie is its production and graphics. CGI-wise, the production itself, everything looks good. The directing is really awesome. The action is very, very well thought out, even if it's a little hard to see or make out sometimes. There's a couple of sequences near the end, like when they go into water and things, that gets a little on the confusing side, and also on the kind of stupid side. Sarah, don't shoot out the windows when your car is submerged underwater. You're just gonna, drown faster. But other than those little small hiccups here and there, overall, this movie is just a solid. If you want just action, you will not be disappointed, because there's plenty of it here with some good stunts and really good effects, and they do utilize this new Terminator in pretty unique ways, though it is essentially just a TX. More on that in the next section. But they do things with him that do feel different. I will also state that pretty much all of the actors, except for one, are really goddamn good in this movie. Linda Hamilton comes back as Sarah Connor, and she sells it. She occasionally has to say a line that's really stupid, but even when she says stupid lines, it does work. Arnold Schwarzenegger is back yet again, because he's always got to come back in all of these. I think the only one that he didn't star in was Terminator Salvation, and even then they brought back a T-800 CGI model to play him anyway. But I will say that this Terminator is a remarkably different Terminator than we've seen in pretty much all of the other iterations of him. And it's because he's kind of hybridized the original Terminator, machine monochrome stuff with kind of what he was doing in Terminator Genesis, where he was had a personality and he was a father figure and doing all that other stuff. They kind of hybridized that and found a good middle ground. It genuinely made Arnold Schwarzenegger the funniest and most entertaining thing in this movie. And I was not expecting to say that. He just has a deadpan delivery on some of these lines that are just perfect. And they even use some bad writing cliches to really accentuate some of these punchlines later. Like early in the movie, Sarah Connor throws out everyone's phones, but she has one inside of a potato chip bag. And they're like, why is that? It's like, oh, I keep it in a tinfoil case and whatnot. And I also like potato chips a lot. It's a stupid cliche. It's a really stupid cliche, because the only way to block a signal from a cell phone is, or any electronics, is a Faraday cage, not a tinfoil bag. And whatever, movie logic, okay. But later they find out that Arnie's alive and that he'd been tracking her the whole time. And she goes up to him and is like, "How, you've been tracking me this whole time? How?" And Arnold just deadpan delivers, looking her straight in the eye like, "If you want to keep your cell phone inside of a potato chip bag, that's your own choice. But you have to remember, it's a potato chip bag." I genuinely started laughing pretty hard like that. A couple people around me were just looking at me. It wasn't that funny a line. It's like, no, it's actually pretty clever. They're using a known cliche to their advantage, and I gotta give them props there. Now, the other big standout actor inside of this that I will mention by name is Gabriel Luna. I believe I said his name right. It's right over there on a little piece of paper. But he was the new Terminator, the Rev 9, whatever the fuck a Rev is. I don't even understand the acronym. But he was really good in this movie, both because of his physical, having to move like a machine. But whenever you see him interact with actual people inside of this, he's not the Arnold Schwarzenegger type Terminator who, "Give me your clothes and everything now." He actually has a personality. He's talking. He's almost joking with these guys. It's almost as though this new Terminator understands that it's better to, not massacre every human being inside of the room and actually get them to do half of your job for you and then just kill them once they get in the way. It's a genuinely new take on a Terminator and how they would act inside of the world. And I really did appreciate whenever he's on screen, and especially whenever they're doing action scenes with him, it looks great and it's awesome. But we should probably talk about the bad. And for those who don't want a spoiler, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have clicked on this video because I'm going to say it anyway. This is the biggest fuck you this movie could have made, and it was the first 5 minutes. It's the opening 5 goddamn minutes that they throw this at you. But 3, 2, 1 spoiler, John Connor dies. Yeah, you probably kind of already guessed that by the fact that, Sarah Connor is back inside this movie. But it's not the fact that he does die. It's that they show how he dies. Where you have Sarah Connor and him sitting on a beach in the middle of nowhere, inside of this little hut with some people walking around, laughing, tee-hee, ha-ha. He's getting drinks for his mom while she's sitting there. And then Arnie just walks up and blows him in the chest with a fucking shotgun. Completely just out of nowhere, out of the blue. And there's some random, narration monologue saying that Skynet just kept trying to throw Terminators at them. But at this point, it's just stupid. It is really stupid to think that this Terminator could just find them. Just remember that the whole point of Skynet sending these Terminators back in time to those two very, very specific points. One, they knew that there was Sarah Connor who lived in Los Angeles at this time. They didn't know where she was or even her middle name, so the Terminator had to go through a fucking phone book and find out every Sarah Connor and just shoot them all. And then second, in this movie, they knew that John Connor was there in Los Angeles during a set period of time, and they sent a Terminator back who had to go and hack the freaking police database to find where he was staying so he could kill him. They had very limited information. How the fuck did they find them sitting on a goddamn beach in the middle of nowhere? There is such a thing as off the grid. And they acknowledge that in this movie. It's a plot point later on. So, how, why, and worse, it really does render the first 2 movies pointless in this entire franchise. In one freaking move, you've taken the 2 best films in this franchise and thrown them in the garbage because John didn't even make it past the opening credits. And again, on a technical side of this movie, it looks great. They de-aged Linda Hamilton and CGI altered another kid to basically look like John Connor from that movie. But the problem is they made him look like he was in that movie. So you can tell that he maybe only lasted a year longer before he got shot and killed, and the world basically got screwed over. Wow. Now, a lot of people compare this to Aliens 3 because they basically did the exact same thing, and James Cameron was tangentially connected to that one. I compare it more to all of those shitty horror sequels. All of the bad Nightmare on Elm Streets and Friday the 13th and Halloweens and all those other ones where they just killed everybody because they couldn't get the actors to come back for some stupid reason. They had their happy ending in the last one, only to find out they only lasted 5 minutes. It's like between The Grudge and Grudge 2 with Sarah Michelle Gellar getting killed in the first 5 minutes. It's cheap, it's stupid, and it's honest to God, fuck you to pretty much all of this. And spoilers, Terminator Genisys kind of did this exact same thing, but at the very least they showed that it was the future version of him that died, not the kid. So they didn't actually, break time with this entire endeavor. But that's a general problem with this movie because its time travel doesn't make sense in its causality or anything. Because, again, this is pretty much the motivation between Sarah Connor and the Terminator in this, is John Connor's death. Sarah's just goes to wherever another Terminator pops out so she can kill the damn thing. And Arnold kind of grew a conscience because he found his own family after his mission was complete. Now, I'm not against the idea of a Terminator learning a conscience after, all the shit's gone down. After he's completed his mission and he no longer has a mission anymore. The problem is that if you're going to do that, actually make the movie about that. Show him growing. Show him dealing with all these other Terminators. Show him actually on a journey. It's a side note and a footnote just to get him where you want him for the sake of this movie. And it feels cheap, and it feels like a disservice to every single one of the Terminator fans who have really pushed for these movies over the years, only to have you basically tell them to go fuck off. The big tagline of this entire franchise is no fake but what we make. But this entire sequence of reboots and different timeline franchises and bullshit like this proves that no, fate is set in. No matter what we do, the best we can do is delay it. So, go fuck yourself. And to get off that small little rant, we should probably talk about the one other actor in this movie who is not good at all, and that would be Mackenzie Davis. She's the quote-unquote good Terminator. They won't call her a Terminator. She's an augment, because that's not copped from 1,000 different other freaking sci-fi franchises over and over and over again. Even if the concept of her does work in context, in execution it really didn't, and you needed a better actress for this. And yeah, she is pretty bad. If I could compare her to anybody out there, it would probably be Brie Larson. But Brie Larson, at the very least, when she's got something to play off of, she can be decent. Here, though, it's like Brie Larson in Captain Marvel when she's doing all of her big, tough girl poses and trying to throw out her one-liners that come off more as a condescending bitch. Like, she gets in pissing contests with Linda Hamilton inside of this multiple times, and every single time she just comes off as an ass looking for a fight, and not even an ass that could, is charming or has some kind of dynamic thing that we want to see inside of this. No funny humor to any of her lines. She's just an ass, and I feel part of that is the actress. The actress is just, I think, trying to fit into the kind of Captain Marvel mold here, but it was a dumb idea when they did it in Captain Marvel. Why are you doing it here? But then the last thing I will talk about is that this movie really apes from the others. And it feels like it's just forced in there because, nostalgia is something you remember. But when you get down to it, this movie just proves that T3 did this better. Because it is essentially just T3. But at least T3 went into the psychology of John Connor and really showed how this entire situation fucked him up. Here, though, we don't get any of that. At best, we get to see what his mom was like, but again, that's mostly because she saw her son shot in front of him and then has to team up with his killer later, who grew a conscience and has a family that she never could have anymore. That is just a big fuck you. But, even right down to the way they killed this Terminator, they just used the pull your power source out and shove it in the freaking mouth of this thing that they did from T3. Oh, wait, they did it to his eye this time, and it wasn't a nuke. It feels like this series is just on repeat. And while this is, on a technical level, better than T3 Salvation or Genesis, and definitely better than Salvation and Genesis in terms of writing, it's still not very good. I'm sorry, that's just the way I have to put it. My honest to God final verdict, it's not a fuck it. A lot of people think that this is a fuck it bad movie because You know, it's just so disrespectful, but really it's not. And that's only one aspect of what I tend to grade things on. You know, overall enjoyment, technicals, and you know, history stuff like that. You know, those are kind of my three categories of where I lodge things, and it does vary between movie and movie. But here, though, its biggest problem is that it's been there, done that. It's not the best action you'll ever see. It's not the best writing you'll ever see by far, even in this franchise. In fact, I'd argue that T3 is much better writing than what we saw inside of this movie. So instead, my personal rating, this is a skip it. There's really no reason to see this one. It has the same problem that Genesis did. It's rebooting it based off of two films that really... Do we even want to anymore? The best we could do with this is maybe do some of the future stuff or completely reboot this franchise. Hell, if you rebooted this whole movie, cut out that opening 5 minutes and just, you know, have Sarah Connor show up and say that they eventually did get him without showing what it was, it could work. I could see it working. Just don't show the actual death. And maybe I'd like this movie more. And make it just a full-on reboot instead. But for what we got, it's just not really worth it. I'll say skip it. That's my final verdict. And that's it for me. Did you enjoy the video? Have you seen Terminator Dark Fate? Tell me what you thought about it in the comments down below. Let's get some healthy discussion going. Especially if you're one of those ones that actually did like this movie. I'm genuinely curious if I'm just being more hyperbolic versus, you know, my concerns are legitimate. I want to hear your opinion on that. And as always, if you liked what you saw, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that jazz to help my channel grow and hopefully one day be able to at least pay for itself so I don't have to pay out of pocket on this one. Also, I am streaming almost consistently every Thursday night at 11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, so if you want to join, be sure to join, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you know when I go live. And yeah, that's it for me, so I'll see you all next time.